Welcome to week number 8 of the high school football season. Just 2 more games to go before we kick off district play. Through 7 weeks, we only have 2 unbeaten teams here in mid-Missouri. The 7-0 Smith Cotton Tigers from Sedalia and the 7-0 Blair Oaks Falcons in Wardsville. Blair Oaks is coming off a wild win over Osage at the lake last Friday night. This game was tied at 26-26 midway through the 3rd quarter. Blair Oaks rattled off the last 26 points, winning 52-26. The Falcons back at home this Friday night to host the California Pintos. And this is a Central Bank KRCG tailgate night with the free Blair Oaks t-shirts, hot dogs, and more. We will be live for our KRCG football Friday night pregame at 5 and 6 from the Falcon Athletic Complex. Sports writer Tom Leffler joins us for the preview. And Tom, it's another tailgate. I expect to see you at Blair Oaks this week.
I will be at Wardsville because, you know, this will be the first one I've actually gotten hot dogs. I've been to 2 others. They ran out of hot dogs, so hopefully,
no way.
Hopefully KRCG threw in an extra 20 bucks for a few more packets of hot dogs so I can get one this week.
Well, with all the thousands of hot dogs, we will try to keep at least 1 or 2 for you. Blair Oaks, 4th quarter last week. I left at halftime, and I thought Osage played them very well through the first 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden Blair Oaks took off again.
Well, they did. They're a second-half club. They've been that way since Terry Walker's been there. Osage played well. You know, it was homecoming. They were very emotional. Sure. They were energetic. And it was right there, and Blair Oaks, it took them a while before they finally got some separation. They did. They just wear down teams. They're physically in better shape than most of the teams they play, plus the coaching adjustments. That's a great combination.
Talk about Blair Oaks, the quarterback situation. Cade Stockman has really come into his own. What a great experience as a freshman to get this kind of varsity experience. That'll help him down the way. But Blair Oaks, of course, their starting quarterback, Hare, could be back in time for district play.
Mm-hmm. Well, is Nolan Hare going to be the Wally Pipp of Central Missouri football? and Cade Stockman, the Lou Gehrig? I doubt that because Nolan's awfully good. But yes, Cade reminds me so much of Peyton Manning in his mannerisms. His feet.
You see those feet?
Yeah, his feet moving and the way he sets the ball, his mechanics. He's not quite Peyton Manning yet, but he's done a wonderful job filling in for Nolan.
Really has. Been a fun team to watch. They've got the weapons, and their defense has been awfully tough. I think sometimes that gets lost in the mix, but they can wear you out on defense.
Well, they're such a good tackling team. You know, they're undersized in every game. But they're such a good blocking team, such a good tackling team. We shouldn't be surprised with Terry Walker, a Pete Atkins disciple, being their head coach.
Yeah, very good. They will play the California Pintos. California lost their former coach, Gary Labury, this week. What a great coach he was. 307 wins in 34 years at California High School. Took 3 teams in a row to a state championship game in 97, 98, 99. I think they won it all in 97, which is the same year the Jeff City Jays won it. So really one of the better coaches we've seen in mid-Missouri, Gary Labury.
You know, these kids these days maybe don't appreciate what Labury did at California, what Ray Henches did at Elias. What Pete did, of course, at Jeff City. I mean, these guys are just wonderful, great coaches. You know, Pete's on a different plane, but what Henches did and what Gary did at California, he really put Pinto football on the map. And when they talk about Pinto pride, he's the one that started it.
Yeah, I remember several conversations with him. Man, he was tough.
Oh.
He didn't put up with anything, but he got the best out of his players, and boy, they played hard for him, and they had some really good players that went through those programs those years under Gary Labury.
Yeah, he was old school. He really was. He was just like Pete was. Again, back to fundamentals, great blocking and tackling teams he had. It's a shame that, you know, he fell victim to cancer in this Cancer Awareness Month. Great coach, good guy, and it's just a really sad loss.
It is, and I remember the times with the Zimmerman family. They lost a son to cancer during that same time. Gary Labury was the guy that really got the community involved and got them to support the Zimmermans, and then lo and behold, later Gary had the cancer too, and he was a lot of a great man off the field too. Really did a lot for that community.
You bet.
Anyway, we will miss him. It is homecoming for the Jefferson City Jays this week. They take on the state's 4th-ranked Battle Spartans in Class 5. Battle comes in 5-6 5-2, the Jays 2-5. Tom, if you remember the history of it, and you know better than anybody else around here, Jays used to never lose on homecoming. I mean, they had that stretch of
38, I believe.
Unbelievable stretch.
40.
Yeah.
They'd never lost on homecoming. You're right. Pete never lost a homecoming game.
Yeah, amazing.
Even in their 2-8 season of 1980, which the Jays could be headed for 2-8 this year. But even in that 2-8 season, Pete won homecoming. He never lost one, and that's an amazing number.
It is. This will be a tough one. Battle Spartans really playing well. They're 5-2, and they've got some high expectations in that Battle football program.
Well, you look at their 2 losses, a 9-0, very competitive game, obviously, 9-0 against Rockbridge. Their other loss was Vianney. Vianney's undefeated. They're 7-0. They're a very good football team. Battle's good. You know, they lost a lot of great players last year, and it's taken maybe a little bit to get their legs back under them, but they're playing good football. I look for them to spoil Jeff City's homecoming this Friday. All
right, well, we will be there for homecoming for the Jays. Also, Elias heading to Kirksville this week. The Crusaders coming off a loss to Rockbridge on the Crusaders homecoming, and you were there. This Rockbridge team is for real, a team that lost, or they won only 2 games last year.
And the year before.
And the year before. All of a sudden, 6-1, ranked number 10 in the state.
They're good. They're offensively, they're very efficient, but Nathaniel Pete is very explosive.
Yes, he is.
He was an athletic mismatch last week against Elias. They didn't have anybody keep up with him. But really what impressed me most about them is their defense. They're good. They're fundamentally sound, and they're in the right place at the right time. They make very few mistakes.
Van Venata doing a great job of coaching
there.
Yes, he is. There was another college coach on the field you saw. Who was that?
My grandson's only 2 years old, but he certainly had one of the highlights of his life already. He got to give Barry Odom a high five. Barry was there for the first half. He left at halftime when it was, I think, 45-7.
Yeah.
Something like that. You know, I do have to mention the Crusaders. Good for them. Even it was against Rockbridge's lower units, but they scored the game's final 23 points. It would have been easy to mail it in. It was 58-7. They kept playing, and there could be a controversy at quarterback now because Connor came in, did a great job, and led him to those 3 touchdown drives in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, and Elias will go to Kirksville, of course, this week. A pretty good chance for a win there, and to finish off the season perhaps with another win at the end of the season, too. They
play at DeSmet. DeSmet is winless. I look for them to win the next 2 weeks, and right now they're 4th in their district standings, so it looks like they're going to get that extra home game at Ray Hampton Stadium. I'd be surprised if that didn't happen.
One more question for you on Barry Odom's appearance there. Was he looking for anybody particularly on the Rockbridge team, perhaps like a 3rd-string tackle?
He was actually looking for you. I had a KRCG shirt on. He said, "Where's Rod at?" And I said, "I think he's up at the concession stand. That's where he hangs out." He might have been looking at Nathaniel Pete because he's small, but he's dynamic.
Oh, my gosh.
He's quick. He's got great feet, great eyes, great vision of the field. But I didn't talk to him about that. I introduced my grandson, and we went on our way.
All right. Well, Rockbridge welcomes St. Louis University High this week. Mike Jones coming back to mid-Missouri.
He can't get out of Central Missouri, can he?
Former Lincoln coach.
Came back a couple weeks ago, right across the street from Reed Stadium, and beat the Jays at Atkins Stadium. Now he's coming back. He just can't get out of Central Missouri.
Well, one of the really good guys. We'll get to see him up at Rockbridge this week. Well, Tom, thanks a lot. What can we look forward to on Leffler's Link?
Well, I'm going to be keeping a close eye on the district softball that starts this week, and of course I'll be out of Blair Oaks for free hot dogs and might watch a little football while I'm there. And then I'm very interested to see if Missouri can look better Saturday at Kentucky. We're not going down there. We might go down there for Missouri basketball at Kentucky.
That would be fun. Good travel.
Not going there, but I'm interested to see if they play better, even if they don't win. Just, you know, the last 2 weeks they've had the last 2 games, non-efforts. Just play better.
Yeah, play with some passion and get after it. Well, thanks a lot, Tom. Appreciate you being here with us. Meanwhile, some other games that we'll have around the area. One of the biggest stories really in mid-Missouri high school football this season, the Eldon Mustangs. A 6-1 start. They've scored in bunches. They'll get to take on Osage. Scored 69 points last week at Versailles, 82 against Warsaw the week before. Earlier this season, 72 against Owensville. Tony Mullen joins us, and Tony, that Eldon team has been so much fun to watch on the field. You get to watch this one, Eldon and Osage this week.
This should be a good game. Two good teams that are having very good years. You mentioned the Eldon point totals. They've averaged 69 points or so the last 3 games.
Unbelievable.
Lighten up the scoreboard. We know Osage can do it too. We saw them put up 51 in a losing effort against Southern Boone a couple of weeks ago, and big game against Versailles the next week. They scored 26 against Blair Oaks. I know that doesn't sound like a huge number, but against that defense, that's pretty darn good. And we know they can throw the ball with Zach Wheeler at quarterback, and he's got guys around him. So this could be another one of those. You know, Eldon played a 72-69 game earlier this year against Owensville. You wonder if you're going to see something similar to that this week.
All right, we will see. Well, it certainly had to deal with more than just football in Eldon. Dealt with tragedy just 2 weeks ago. Hunter Bushnell, serious spinal injury during practice. But Tony, the Mid-Missouri sports community, I've always thought it's special, and it is. It's stepped up. We've seen it at Versailles, California, several other schools too, pitching in, raising a few dollars for the Bushnell family, and seeing the number 13 around in Hunter's honor. It's really heartwarming to see after such a bad thing.
It's been all over, and you know, these Tri-County Conference teams, there are such great rivalries with a lot of these schools. They've been in this conference for so long, but you know, people understand, you know, when to put a rivalry aside and really pitch in and do something when, you know, for the community, for an opposing community, when something like this happens. And you know, Hunter, we just hope you continue to get better, and we're all praying for you and thinking about you, and everyone in Eldon's behind you, and everyone around Mid-Missouri is behind him as well, and that's great to see.
Absolutely. Well, Osage coming into the rivalry game, really a great venue, Tony, when you go to watch football at Mustang Memorial Park, Victor Field. Love to say that, but boy, the band there and the atmosphere, and the Osage fans are just down the road. They will be there. Boy, they had a great homecoming last week, a big crowd there. So I imagine this is going to be one of our better atmospheres for high school football this year.
I think this place is going to be packed, and you're right, with the two schools being so close, you're going to have a hard time getting into that place on Friday night. It's going to be great fun.
I wish you could stay there the whole game, but you're probably going to have to come back at halftime, right?
If I get out, maybe. We'll see.
You may get blocked in there. All right, another big game, Highway 54 Bowl for years. This has been a rivalry. Mexico and Fulton. The Hornets travel to Mexico this year to take on the Bulldogs, and Mexico's 5-2. And besides that opening night loss to Battle, they didn't play well then, and they didn't play very well against Boonville in a loss on the home field. Other than that, I still think this Mexico team is very good. Very,
very good team. And, you know, the opening night game, that was, you know, ugly, obviously, from their standpoint. They've played well since then. Boonville, that was a little surprising. That was homecoming, and Steve Haig had wondered that. You know, we went there. That was the week after they beat Hannibal, so you're coming off a big win, and you got all the homecoming things, and, you know, talked to Coach that week, and he wondered, you know, are we going to be able to put all that aside? And, you know, Boonville scored a late touchdown in that game and won that football game. But Mexico's a solid team, 5-2, and outside of that one loss, you know, this is a team that you looked at coming into the season. We knew they'd be very good, potentially challenge for the conference championship, which they can still do. But, you know, 5-2, playing well, and should win this week, but it's a rivalry game, and you never know what can happen in those games.
And looking at Fulton, this is a team that comes in at, what, 2-5, I believe.
Right.
But that record, to me, when you look at those scores, they've got 3 of those losses by a touchdown or less. I think the Hornets are not that far away from being pretty darn competitive. That 28-24 loss to Boonville last week is one of those.
Right, and that was a loss that was late in the game. I think final minute, or, you know, final minute and a half, something like that. It was the final minute against Osage week 1 when the Indians scored that touchdown. So those 2 games especially, the other game I believe was Tolton. They lost that game by 7 points. But you've got the first game of the year and the most recent game of the year. If they can make, you know, one play at the end of each of those games, all of a sudden you're talking about a team that's 4-3. So they're not far off from being, you know, pretty competitive. They've been competitive, but record-wise, they're not far off from being an above 500 team.
Blake Logan in his first year as head coach there, I think he's done a pretty good job, and I can only imagine it's going to get better in Fulton.
They should, yes.
Hickman Cupies finally picked up their first win last week. It was 68-0 over Central Academy. Unfortunately, they don't get to play that team again, Tony.
No, they don't, but you know what? This is where Hickman and Elias kind of did it differently, because Elias had Rockbridge on homecoming. Just the way the schedule worked out, I guess they didn't have much of a choice. But yeah, Central Academy was the homecoming opponent. That was a good choice if you're the Hickman Cupies.
So the Cupes have to go on the road to Lee Summit West. This is traditionally a fairly new school, really, over the years, but they've been very, very good. They're now in Class 6 and ranked number 4 in the state. So You get to go from the worst team on your schedule to one of the best in the 1 week for Hickman on the road.
I know. Don't be surprised if, unfortunately for Hickman, that score kind of turns around this week for the QBs. But at least they got that victory. They hadn't won a home game in 3 years going into last week. So good for them. At least they're in the win column.
That was a good celebration for Hickman. Good to see that. Pretty good matchup at Boonville this week. Barry Blank and the Pirates. They're 4-3. They'll host 5-2 Moberly. The Spartans, one of the real surprising teams, I think, in mid-Missouri.
Right.
They lost their first 2 games. They've reeled off 5 straight, including an 18-13 win over Hannibal. Hannibal's not used to losing too many games, so that was a good win for Moberly.
That was a very good win. And Hannibal's 4-3. They might be a little bit down from what we've seen in the past, but this is still the team that's been the team to beat in that North Central Missouri Conference, and that's a huge confidence booster for Moberly to get past that team. You mentioned the 2 losses earlier this year by a combined 4 points for Moberly. Week 1, they lost 7-6 at Smith Cotton, which is an undefeated state-ranked Class 5 team, and that was after a multi-hour lightning delay at halftime that first week of the year. And then the next week they came home, played Pleasant Hill. I think they gave up a couple late touchdowns in that game and lost by 3. So a couple of tough losses to open the season, but they've been solid since then. 5 straight victories. Even counting those 2 losses, they are giving up just over 8 points per game this season. That defense, that's it. That defense has been spectacular. Had a couple of shutouts in there. In fact, week 2 against Pleasant Hill, that was their worst defensive effort of the season. They gave up 17 points.
No kidding.
So that's been, they have, you say defense wins championships? Well,
might be Moberly.
That's pretty darn good defense.
And I haven't really looked at it. You mentioned the North Central Missouri Conference. That's really up in the air, isn't it? Hannibal a little bit down, so Moberly's in there, Mexico's in there.
Right now it's Mexico and Moberly. Moberly's undefeated in the conference. Mexico has that 1 loss to Boonville. So you look at Moberly's schedule. This week they play Boonville. Boonville's better. You know, Moberly probably should win that game with that defense. And then they finish up with Mexico week 9. So that's the game that, you know, unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately for, you know, Barry Blank's case, but if Mexico had hung on to win that homecoming game, we could have been looking at 2 undefeated conference teams playing for the conference championship. Won't happen that way, but you still could have an undefeated conference team in Moberly against possibly a 1-loss Mexico team, and that would still be a very entertaining football game and still a conference title on the line.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Tony knows it all. Thanks for giving us...
I know some of it. I know that at least.
Thanks for giving us the information. And have a good time at that Eldon Osage game.
I will. That's going to be fun.
I want to switch places with you. I'd like to go see that one too. Actually, I like to go to about 4 games every Friday night, but I can only go to 1. Some of the other games that we will be covering this week: Southern Boone looking to finish the season strong, hosting Warsaw. It's homecoming in Hallsville. The Indians host the Versailles Tigers. Father Tolton is at home again, entertaining the Cuba Wildcats. Both North Callaway and South Callaway on the road. The T-Birds play at Bowling Green. South Callaway heads to Clopton-Ellsbury, and Centralia will try to shake a 2-game losing streak, welcoming Monroe City. And the Harrisburg Bulldogs return to the football field after the tragedy that they had, the loss of baseball and cross-country coach Brian Simpson. Harrisburg will host Scotland County. For a complete list of our Week 8 Football Friday night games, go to our sports page at krcgtv.com. Again, we will be live at Blair Oaks High School for the 4th and final Central Bank KRCG tailgate of the season, live at 5 and 6 o'clock with the cheer squad, the dance team, the band, and a special group will also join us. Tune in to see who that is. Have a great rest of the week. We'll see you 10:15 for all the scores and highlights on KRCG 13's Football Friday Night.